begin with opening statements.
It's me. Hello, Your Honor, and people being present today. Thank you so much for attending. Um, we are being here today to be holding the Mr. Simon de Gaffa accountable for his actions on January 28, 2024. On this date, he did be committing the violent and heinous crimes of the aggravated attempted murder of the policia and the obstruction of the justice. The evidence and officer testimony will clearly be outlining all elements of each of these crimes. On this date, the officers Indigo, Blackwood, and Dawn responding to the simple reports of the breaking into cars at LSIA. There they are encountering the suspect, they later identifying as Mr. Tom Porter, who fleeing from them is the passenger in a red SUV. The officers pursuing this vehicle across the state until it is stopping in the Integrity Way Tunnel. Mr. Porter then exiting the vehicle tried to be entering the staged vehicle that was being registered to the Jackson Porter. He was quickly tased and passing out on the scene from injuries. It was at that point that Mr. Simon de Gaffa did be initiating his criminal attack. The testimony and evidence presented today in this court will be painting the very clear picture. The blue boxy sport car arriving from the tunnel east side and opened fire on the officers. They being forced to quickly take cover from the barrage of gunfire. This vehicle, driven by Mr. de Gaffa, then fled the scene. He later returning at the west end of the tunnel to be resuming his attack upon the officers, this time exiting the vehicle to be getting the better shot. The officers are returning the gunfire, striking the Mr. de Gaffa and forcing him to leave the scene, but not before he striking two of the unseen officers, Don and Barlow. The Lady Barlow uniform soaking and being moist with her blood, and the vest of Mr. Don saving him. Today, the state will be proving beyond any doubt that the Mr. de Gaffa is being the individual to be committing these crimes, to be executing this premeditated, targeted, and planned attack on the officers, and to be hindering their duties as they were trying to be detaining the Mr. Tom Porter and the Mr. Jackson Porter, hindering their duties as they were trying to be rendering medical aid to the Mr. Tom Porter, and hindering their duties as they were trying to be documenting the evidence on the scene and the vehicles. The state will ask for this court today to be holding the Mr. de Gaffa accountable for the heinous actions and dangerous assault he committing on the policia simply doing their jobs. Mr. Simon de Gaffa must be found guilty. That is being all.
Defense.
Hello, Your Honor. I'll keep it uncharacteristically short and sweet. This case is novel in that it's an oops all circumstantial evidence case. We are, of course, not saying that officers weren't unfortunately involved in a shooting that day, which I hope they recover. We do agree that Tom Porter was breaking into cars, that a chase resulted and ended in shots being exchanged with an unknown party in a blue sports car. The state and I just disagree on the identity of that shooter. They never caught him that day. They never saw his face. The state is unfortunately working only with partial information, evidence they collected and drew the wrong conclusion from. I will call a witness who can concretely testify that Mr. de Gaffa was not at the incident that day, and I will go piece by piece of their evidence and show you what they were missing. By the end, I am confident that you will acquit Mr. de Gaffa on all charges. Thank you.
And if the plaintiff or the state can call their first witness, please.
Yes, Your Honor, the state will call Officer Teresa Indigo.
We just go up.
Where the bailiff?
Do we sit yet?
Yeah, you can sit.
Please raise your right arm. Do you swear the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
She has been sworn in.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect, thank you. Hello there. Can you please, for the court, state your name and occupation just for the record?
Teresa Indigo, captain of the Blaine County Sheriff's Office.
Oh my gosh, thank you for your service. Do you recall being on duty the date of January 28th?
Yes.
Do you recall responding to the LSIA?
Yes.
Can you, for the court, describe this initial call you're responding to?
Yes. Okay. Got a call of somebody breaking into vehicles. So I went down. Blackwood said he would also assist. I was stationed just south of the initial call at the LSIA parking lot. Got out my camera, started observing. Then I noticed a male suspect breaking into a vehicle, sitting in it, went in the trunk. Then they went to another vehicle. This was a male suspect, by the way. Broke into another vehicle. They smashed the window. At this time, I observed a second individual got into a red SUV and drove westbound. So I focused on the primary suspect that was just in one vehicle and then smashed the window on the other. This time I took some photos and I told Blackwood to approach. Blackwood approached the individual and began talking to them, to which the suspect stated that they were Brian Gaffa. They were just in the area. Do you want me to keep going?
No, that is fine.
Okay.
This day would like to enter the evidence exhibit 3A and 4A through F on line 10.
Okay.
This is the initial report and the evidence taken from this scene. What happened after he talking to the officer?
So he said he was Brian Gaffa. He was talking to us. That suspect that I mentioned that got in the red SUV and drove westbound was standing by the red SUV, just onlooking quite a bit away. And then I noticed that the suspect, by the way, he was not Brian Gaffa. Am I allowed to say his name?
You can.
Okay, later identified as Tom Porter. He picked up a phone call. He said it was his brother. And then a motorcycle appeared on scene. That was occupied by a male suspect as well. Then, all of a sudden, Mr. Porter took off running. Tom Porter took off running on foot towards the red SUV. When he got to the red SUV, by the way, in that time when we noticed more units were coming, Officer James Dawn also attached to the scene as well. So Dawn was on scene. And then the motorcycle was there. The red SUV was there. The suspect's running on foot towards the red SUV, Tom Porter. And then the blue boxy vehicle's there. And then we asked the blue vehicle to leave, the motorcycle to leave. They do not. Suspect gets in the red SUV. Blue boxy vehicle's kind of blocking motorcycles, interfering. And then the blue boxy vehicle broke off, and so did the motorcycle. And a pursuit happened, and we were pursuing the red SUV. Occupied 2 times, so it was a total of 4 male suspects.
Okay. So you are pursuing this vehicle. Can you, for the court, describe this pursuit?
Yeah, like weaving out. Is that what you mean?
Were any vehicles interfering in this pursuit?
Yeah, at the start, the motorcycle was attempting to block law enforcement, along with the blue boxy vehicle. And the initial probably couple minutes of the pursuit, the blue boxy vehicle and motorcycle were following the red SUV that was occupied 2 times.
Okay. And where did this pursuit be ending?
The pursuit. So I was paralleling. At one point, Aaron Barlow ended up the tunnel area on Integrity. Dawn and Blackwood were more, but it ended in the tunnel where the suspect, Tom Porter, was dropped off and there was a vehicle staged. At that time, I would have been on Strawberry, where they were in Integrity Way, so I was on the outside.
Okay. Can you, for the court, describe this location of the tunnel?
Oh, where the vehicle was?
Yes.
I would say it was like the middle east of the tunnel.
Could you provide a physical description of this tunnel for the court?
Yeah, it's the one near Lower Pillbox, the parking lot area, and it comes out onto Strawberry. It's near the bus station area. That's also located across from Pillbox, and it extends all the way through to like Alta and Upper Power.
Okay. This they would like to enter into evidence. Exhibit 10A on line 10. This is a photo of the long and narrow tunnel, Integrity Way.
Yeah, noted.
What is happening after Mr. Porter getting out of the car?
Just came across radio that the suspect was tased. He didn't successfully get away in the stage vehicle, but the red SUV drove off. So it was Tom Porter there tased.
Okay. In your experience, was this scene over at this time?
We believed so.
You believed?
Yes.
What happening?
Well, while officers were trying to officially arrest the suspect and administer medical aid, shots were opened fire from the eastern end of the tunnel from just south of the bus station that it is Integrity Way extended. Am I allowed to take out my phone and give the exact location?
The state would enter into evidence Exhibit 19D on line 22 of the docket. Are you able to access this photo?
Me?
Yes.
Yes.
Which exhibit? Sorry.
It is State Exhibit 19D, line
Okay.
22.
Can you? It's broken.
Yes.
Yes. 19D?
Yes, 1 second. Lady Becker, are you able to see this evidence?
I am, yes. Your Honor, if you want, I can get that to you while she's.
She emailed it to me.
Okay, yeah, I got it.
Okay. Could you please describe this photo for the court?
Give me 1 second. I gotta pull it up myself. It's also broken for me. Give me 1 second.
I sent you.
Alright, I got it. Alright, so describe it.
Yes. Indicate what you have pointed out in this photo.
So where Integrity Way crosses into Strawberry, and then there's another street. That street where the clothing store is Center Street. On the corner of Integrity Way and Center Street, that's where shots were fired by a blue boxy vehicle suspect on officers in the tunnel.
Okay. About how long did this shooting be happening?
It was pretty quick, maybe 30 seconds. It was pretty quick. It was probably like 5 or so shots, and then by the time I called it out, turned to open fire, the suspect got in the vehicle and was gone.
They left the scene?
They left that area, yes.
Could you be seeing who was firing the shots?
I did not at the time. I just know the vehicle was blue boxy.
Okay. Let me see. Did you in response to this gunfire, what did you have to be doing?
I had to call it out and open fire and let other officers know, and officers needed to take cover the suspect that was down, the primary suspect, Tom Porter. And then I had to start looking to figure out where that vehicle went, so I held the Strawberry east end of the tunnel where it meets Integrity, try and block.
Okay.
Motorcycle also starts interfering as well.
Oh my gosh, that sounds crazy.
It was.
So after the vehicle leaving the scene, um, did you ever see that vehicle before?
Yeah, on the original scene, right before Tom Porter entered the red SUV that initiated the pursuit.
And did you ever be seeing that vehicle again?
Yes.
And where did you be seeing this vehicle again?
So after it shot on Integrity Way in Center Corner, came up Strawberry and entered the tunnel east to west.
And what is happening when this vehicle is returning to the scene?
I'm calling it out. Officers are taking appropriate cover. The motorcycle is also interfering, so the vehicle drives east to west, U-turns, come back. So I'm still in my vehicle. Other officers are out. And then the motorcycle also is driving with the blue boxy vehicle. They U-turn and go back. So they went east to west, west to east, and then back west. Does that make sense?
Yes, they are
On the
going.
left side of the tunnel.
Okay.
So incorrect lanes of travel because the officers were in the correct lanes of travel.
Okay. Did any shooting be happening at this time?
So after it drove up and down the tunnel and it went back west, that's where starts started to go off.
Where's the shots?
Shots, yes. More on the western end of the tunnel, though.
Okay.
And at one point, the blue boxy vehicle suspect got out of the vehicle, opened fire on officers who were with that downed primary suspect, Tom Porter, and were shooting at officers, to which I called out. I was still mobile in my vehicle. I drove up near. And then Blackwood, myself, Dawn, Barlow, they're taking cover. I'm shooting. Blackwood was shooting. Everyone was shooting. And then the suspect, I believe I hit the suspect. Blackwood also stated he believed he hit the suspect. And then the blue boxy vehicle suspect, I could confirm at that time it was a male suspect as well. And then the suspect got back in the vehicle, shot a little more, and then drove off westbound out of the tunnel.
Okay, you left the scene again. Did
Yep.
you ever see that vehicle again?
Much later,
Okay.
like an hour or so later.
We will get to that.
Yep.
After the shooter leaving the scene, that time, did anybody be collecting evidence on this scene?
Not immediately,
Why not immediately?
because the motorcycle was also still interfering in driving up and down the tunnel.
And what did happen to this motorcycle?
Eventually, the motorcycle drove on the northern end of the tunnel, on the sidewalk. That's what I mean by that. So they were coming west to east, and they got so close to officers and went slow enough, and they were able to tase the suspect on the motorcycle. And then they were incapacitated due to injuries. So at that point, we had two suspects, Tom Porter and the motorcycle suspect, who was later identified as Jackson Porter.
Okay. And then at that time, did anybody collect any evidence?
Not at that time.
What did you do after that?
Well, we were getting shot at again.
Oh my gosh. From where were you getting shot at?
The western end of the tunnel, it was out of my view and other officers. I could not see who was shooting, but we were shot at again.
Could you see any vehicles in the location where those shots were coming from?
Unfortunately, no, I could not.
Okay. At what point did you be collecting any evidence on this scene?
Since it was a hostile situation still and, people just continued to shoot, we got the suspect secured to pillbox. Aaron was also shot from the suspect for the Aaron Barlow. Deputy Aaron Barlow was shot. So she was bleeding, so she needed medical help, and the suspects were also needing medical. Officers, I stayed mobile. Officers processed the vehicles, took photos of them, and then we got medical at pillbox for the suspects and Deputy Barlow. Processed the suspects at BPD, and then we came back immediately as soon as they were sent
Okay.
and collected.
Were there any other officers still there on the scene at this time?
No.
The state would like to enter the evidence exhibit 10A through D, line 10, 11A through D, line 10, 18A through F, and 19A through D on line 22. This is going to be the crime scene photos, the forensic reports, the photos of the officer indicating the location of the suspects. Let me see. What type of evidence was collected from the scene?
Blooded casings mainly.
And what happened to this evidence that was collected?
Blackwood and I collected it after we took photos, and then I ran it through our lab.
Are you able to recall? You can reference this stat exhibit 11A through D. What did those results indicate?
It would reference that blood came back to, well, do I tell you what I know now or at the time? Because at the time, after first initially running the report, blood didn't come back to anybody.
Okay.
And neither the casings did not come back to anybody.
Okay, that is fine. The state will note that in the forensic reports, there are 4 different 9mm shell casings, 2 different casings from a taser cartridge, and 3 different strands of DNA. For the court, did anybody document any of the vehicles?
Yes. Blackwood mainly documented the vehicles on scene, the motorcycle and the other vehicle that Tom Porter tried to get into.
Okay. The state would enter into evidence at this time exhibit 6A through E, line 10, 7A and B, line 10. About how much time was passing between when the shooter leaving the scene the second time and the next shots coming out?
Few minutes.
A few minutes. Okay. In your experience as the officer on this scene, do you believe that the shooting of this scene was hindering your abilities to be detaining the suspects?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you believe this shooting incident hindering your abilities to be documenting the vehicles?
Could you repeat that?
This shooting, did it hinder your ability to document the vehicles?
Yes.
Did it hinder your ability to be collecting evidence?
Yes.
At the time of this incident, were you able to be identifying the shooter?
Aside from being in the blue boxy vehicle, no, but the 2 suspects were both GSR negative that we did bring into custody, Tom and Jackson Porter.
Okay. Did you be having any suspicions following this incident who the shooter could have been being?
Not at the time, no.
Did you ever have any suspicions who the shooter was?
Potentially, yes.
And what um, was giving you the suspicion of who could possibly be the shooter?
Well, about an hour after everything wrapped up, Blackwood and I were in a different pursuit, and there was a blue boxy vehicle parked street or two over, and it fit the exact description of the vehicle that had just shot at officers.
Okay. And let me see. Who's this vehicle being registered to?
Simon de Gaffa.
One moment. Um, the state would like to enter to evidence Exhibit 13A through C, line 10 again. I would like for you to, if you could, actually, hold on. Was there anything found on the initial scene in the vehicle or the tunnel that indicating the possible suspect, Mr. De Gaffa?
Yes.
And what was that?
I believe it was Blackwood who went in the trunk of the vehicle that Tom Porter tried to get into, and a gun was found in the trunk that was registered to Simon de Gaffa.
The state would note that this is going to be Exhibit 6, D, and 7A and B, the firearm recovered from the vehicle being registered to Mr. De Gaffa. If you could, at this time, reference State Exhibit 13A and B on line 10. Please let me know if the photos are not working.
Which one?
13A and 13B on line 10.
B works, A does not.
Okay, I can see it. Your Honor, does these photos work for you?
No.
Either one?
Nope.
I'd also like a copy. I apologize.
Sorry.
It's a reality we're dealing with right now. It's fine.
This is 13A. And 13B. Apologies to the court. Not my fault. In reference to these photos, 13A and 13B, is this vehicle matching the description of the unseen vehicle that was initially interfering in the pursuit?
Yes.
Is this vehicle matching the description of the unseen vehicle that firing shots on the officers in the Integrity Way tunnel?
Yes.
Is this the vehicle that leave at the scene of the initial shots fired at Integrity Way?
Yes.
Is this the vehicle that returning to the scene of the shots fired at Integrity Way?
Yes.
Objection.
What's the objection?
Speculation. So far, we've been asking if it matches the description, but we can't be sure that it's the exact same car.
Can you repeat the question really quick?
Asking if it matched the description of the vehicle.
If that's how we word it, that's fine.
Okay. Continue.
Yes.
At any point in time, are you recalling the Mr. Simon de Gaffa to ever be reporting a vehicle being stolen?
No.
The state will also note in Exhibit 13C, line 10, This vehicle is being registered to Mr. Simon de Gaffa. Were you being able to identify the shooter on the scene now?
No. Well, with forensic evidence.
Ah, the forensic evidence. Okay. And how did you happen upon this forensic evidence?
So after the forensic people process the initial casings and blood, few days later I ran it and compared it with other reports in our system and other casings, other blood, and the gun that was used to shoot at officers was coming back to a report that involved an officer involved shooting where Simon de Gaffa was found in possession of the gun and it was registered to him.
Okay. Let me see. At this time, Your Honor, the state would like to enter into evidence Exhibit 14A through K. This is the incident report from which this gun was recovered, where Mr. Simon de Gaffa pled guilty to the charge of using the gun and possession of the gun. And also, the state would like to enter into evidence Exhibit 20A, line 26, the Evelyn Quinn affidavit. The state will note in this affidavit from Lady Evelyn Quinn, she's describing responding to a robbery and lethal assault. Two suspects, Mr. Simon de Gaffa and Johnny Valentine, fleeing from the scene. Some vehicle swaps. Eventually, Mr. de Gaffa, running on foot, tried to get on a vehicle driven by an individual later identified as Randy Porter. Officers tasering Mr. Randy Porter, who opening fire on the officers. Mr. de Gaffa in this incident also opening fire on the officers, and both suspects shot down. Miss Quinn asserting she searched and seized the downed suspect, Mr. Simon de Gaffa, securing a MK2 pistol from his person, serial number ending in 0ZGW, registered to Simon de Gaffa. These items were placed into the evidence locker following the processing of the suspect. There are photographs included within this deposition, Exhibit A, showing the positions of Mr. de Gaffa, including the MK2 pistol on his person, Exhibit B showing the firearm with the serial number and attachments, and Exhibit C showing the registered owner of this weapon. After you are finding this weapon consistent with the shell casings recovered from the scene, what did you be doing?
I ran the gun. Like I shot it myself to confirm that the casings came back to that gun, and it did.
The state would enter into evidence Exhibit 15A. This is the forensic report of the test firing of the weapon recovered from Mr. Simon de Gaffa on February 3rd. The one from Incident Report 22796, Exhibit 14. So after you're securing this gun, knowing that this is the gun that was secured from Mr. de Gaffa on the February 3rd, what else did you be doing?
I got a DNA warrant for Mr. Simon de Gaffa.
And what did this DNA warrant show?
That the DNA from Mr. Simon de Gaffa matched the scene where he shot at officers.
The state would like to enter the evidence exhibits 1, A through F, and exhibit 2A. This is the DNA warrant, probable cause affidavit, and actual DNA warrant. And also exhibit 12A, the DNA results from the DNA warrant execution of Mr. Simon de Gaffa.
Okay.
The state will note that in the forensic reports, evidence 11A, west side of the tunnel, there are shell casings returning to the specific weapon secured from Mr. de Gaffa on February 3rd, and DNA recovered from this location is being also Mr. de Gaffa's DNA. In Exhibit 11B, forensic report, east side of the tunnel, casings returning to Mr. Gaffa firearm, and 11D on the sidewalk, DNA returning to Mr. Gaffa. I'm almost done. Please for the record, if you could reference Exhibit 19A. It is line
Yes.
22 of the docket. Is everybody able to see this photo?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Could you describe this photo for the court?
Yes. So, at the top part, is the western end of the tunnel where the blood and the casings were found belonging to Simon de Gaffa. That was where the suspect got out of the blue boxy vehicle and shot at officers. So on the left side is the path where the blue boxy vehicle was driving up and down, and then where that top circle is on the western end of the tunnel is where that shooter got out on foot and opened fire. Up towards the eastern side is where law enforcement officers were. They were shooting as well. I will say there was a truck where the area of the LEOs were being shot at. That's where they were using to take cover. It was Aaron Barlow's truck. The blue boxy vehicle would have been parked sideways in the middle of the road. So the suspect could also take cover. And that blood was after the fact of that vehicle leaving where the motorcycle suspect hindered as well.
This stat would also enter into evidence Exhibit 21A and B on line 27 of the docket. These photos, are you able to see them for the court? They should be fine.
Yes.
These photos are indicating the location of the Lady Aaron Barlow truck. The state will also note for the court that this photo, Exhibit 19A, is also being the same as Exhibit 10A and also 18A. Both officers Indigo and Blackwater indicating the exact same location for the shooter to be firing upon the officers. If you could please reference State Exhibit 19C, line 22.
Could you repeat that again, please?
19C on line 22.
Yes.
What is in this photo?
Hold on one second. I might not be able to see it. All right. It is indicating where the down primary suspect was towards the more eastern side of the tunnel, along with the path of the blue boxy vehicle. And in the distance towards the western end, it also shows where the blue boxy vehicle suspect got out on foot and shot, along with casings and blood coming back to Simon de Gaffa in the exact spot where the shooter was in the blue vehicle. And then also the blood of the suspect on the motorcycle. Law enforcement officers were near where the primary suspect was tasered down, in that general area on the more right side of the tunnel.
Thank you for that. Please note for the court, this Exhibit 19C is again being the same photo as 18C and 10C. Both officers Indigo and Blackwood are indicating the exact same location for the suspect, Taser Tom Porter, as well as the same location of the motorcycle suspect, Jackson Porter. Finally, for the court, reference State Exhibit I believe it is 19B.
Yes.
Everybody able to see this picture?
Which one? Sorry.
19B.
No.
You are not able to see this?
No.
Apologies. Lady Baker, are you able to see 19B?
I'm sorry, I wasn't speaking loud enough, but yes.
Okay, perfect. Very strange. Can you please, for the court, describe this photo, 19B?
Yes, this is the more western end of the tunnel. That shows the blood and casings where the blue boxy vehicle had shot at officers. The shooter would have been shooting eastbound at the law enforcement, and that's the blood and casings that come back to Simon de Gaffa. On the right side, notice that's the path where the blue boxy vehicle would have been driving up and also shooting at officers. And that is the blood on the sidewalk as well. Simon de Gaffa's blood.
The state will note that this photo here, Exhibit 19B, is being the exact same photo, Exhibit 18D and 10D, the western end of the tunnel. Both officers Indigo and Blackwood in these photos are indicating the exact same location where the shooter did be exiting the vehicle and opening fire on officers. Casings which were turning to the MK2 pistol, State Exhibit 15A, was also being collected here. Forensic report, State Exhibit 11A, also indicating the Simon de Gaffa DNA collected from this location at the west side of the tunnel. This DNA is being surrounded by casings that are being returning to the firearm, the MK2 pistol seized from his person on February 3rd, 2024, State Exhibits 14I and K. I feel like that was very informative. You are welcome. Let me see. I do not believe I have any further questions right now.
Defense.
Miss Inigo,
Whoa.
you indicated that Tom Porter will identify himself as Brian de Gaffa, correct?
Yes.
And you said he spelled his last name out correctly.
He spelled it correctly.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Did you at any point get a plate of the blue boxy sports car during the shooting?
No.
Was there any bullet holes in the car you found at the side of the street?
Not from what I could see. But there was a tire that was deflated and the vehicle was left running.
There was an individual originally driving the red SUV, correct?
Yes.
Was that individual arrested?
No.
All right, thank you. That's all, Your Honor.
The state.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, can we release Miss Indigo from her subpoena?
No
Thank
problems.
you.
Great, thank you for your time. I apologize for my tardiness. You're free to leave the court as you please.
Thank you.
Your next witness.
The state will call Mr. Blackwood to the stand.
All right, do you mind speaking up so everyone can hear you in the courtroom and raise your right hand? Alright, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Harness been sworn in?
Your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. If you could, for the court, your name and occupation for the record.
Jason Blackwood, lieutenant within the LSPD.
Thank you for your service. Were you being on duty the date of January 28th?
Yes,
Do you recall respond to the airport LSIA this date?
I do.
And as a result of this call, what did be happening?
So initially we went down to the car park at LSIA. We found an individual rummaging through the vehicles, later identified as Tom Porter. We tried to initiate a conversation with him, which did last for a couple of minutes before he ran to a red SUV that was in the area by the main road. That red SUV was driven by another individual, and a vehicle pursuit ensued. At the scene, there was also a blue boxy vehicle and a bike. A vehicle pursuit ensued, which ended in the Integrity Way tunnel. In the Integrity Way tunnel, the red SUV attempted to drop off Tom Porter to get into a blue Reinhardt, I believe, that was left running with the door open in the tunnel. Tom Porter was tased before he could get into the vehicle and was incapacitated on the scene.
Okay.
Want to continue with the shooting, or?
Let me see. Yes, you might continue.
So during this and previously during the pursuit, there were the blue vehicle that was originally on scene and the bike were interfering, kind of coming in and out during the pursuit. In the tunnel, that's where the blue vehicle and the bike were particularly interfering in the pursuit. After we had tasered Tom Porter, we were attempting to get him secure and ready for processing and everything like that. But during that time, shots were fired at Indigo. I believe initially that was on the eastern side of the tunnel towards Strawberry Way or Strawberry. I forget the name of the road, Strawberry Road, something like that. Near Lower Pillbox. Shots were initially fired from the blue vehicle, a boxy blue vehicle at Indigo. And this obviously heightened the situation, made us even more on guard. Whilst we were trying to secure Porter, that vehicle was initially shot at Indigo, then drove around through the tunnel, went to the western side, started shooting at police again. Officers obviously returned fire. At this point, there was also the bike with Jackson Porter driving up and down through the tunnel. So there was quite a lot going on. Eventually, we had managed to return shots at the blue vehicle. At one point, they'd stepped out of the vehicle on the western side of the tunnel, shooting at us. I believe I managed to land some shots on the driver, but eventually, after they'd been shot a fair few times, they drove off. The bike continued driving up and down or across through Integrity Way. Eventually, after multiple warnings telling him to leave the area, he did slow down enough, driving onto the sidewalk in the tunnel to the point where I was able to taser him off of the bike and he was incapacitated. At that point, we went on to securing the scene, making sure that blue vehicle didn't come back try shoot us anymore, while we gave first aid to the two suspects that we had, searching them and then moving on to processing them.
Okay. When the vehicle initially firing upon Miss Indigo, do you know where those shots were coming from?
I was in the tunnel, so I don't know for sure. What was communicated over the radio, I believe, is that they were on the. I'm just going to check my phone and tell you the exact road. I believe they were called out to be shooting from Integrity Way, near Lower Pillbox, at Indigo, who was on the eastern side of the Integrity Way tunnel.
This state would again reference Exhibit 19D, the photo from Miss Indigo indicating the location of the initial shots fired. Was it consistent gunfire or was there stopping of the gunfire?
There was stopping. It was kind of, in my opinion, this was almost, in a sense, to distract us, whilst obviously shooting at an officer, maybe trying to get Indigo to pull off by shooting at her to follow him, or something like that. But it was inconsistent, to say the least.
Okay. After the initial shooting, did anyone pursue this vehicle that was shooting?
I do not recall.
Okay. Had you seen this vehicle before?
Yes,
And from where did you see this vehicle?
it was on scene initially at LSIA at the original rummaging call.
Okay. And did you be seeing this vehicle again?
Yes, it tried to interfere multiple times during the pursuit.
And did you see it after the pursuit?
Yes, we saw it perhaps an hour after the situation while we were in pursuit of another vehicle for a different situation.
At any point in time, did you see this vehicle in the tunnel?
Yes, during the shooting, it was driving in the tunnel.
If you could please reference State Exhibit 13A and B on line 10. Please let me know if you are unable to see those pictures.
Apologies. Did you say 13?
Yes, 13A and B. I already sent you.
Oh, okay. I can see them then.
Yes, I can see this.
Is this the vehicle matching the description of the initial interfering vehicle at LSIA?
It is.
Is this vehicle matching the description of the vehicle to be interfering with the pursuit?
It is.
Is this the vehicle that is matching the description of the unseen vehicle that is firing the shots on the officers at the Integrity Wet Tunnel?
Yes.
And is this vehicle that is suspect exiting and firing upon the officers?
Yes.
Let me look. I don't think we need to go through all of these again. I have no more questions at this time.
Defense?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right. Can he be released from his subpoena?
No problem with that.
All right. Thank you for your time. You're free to leave the court as you please. Give me like, I don't know, 1 minute. All right. Whenever you're ready. For your next witness.
Yes, the state will call Officer James Doan to the stand.
Please raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
He has been sworn in. Thank you.
Can I be approached the witness, Your Honor?
Mm-hmm.
Hello there. Please state the name and occupation for the record.
My name's James Dawn. I'm officer with Los Angeles Police Department.
Thank you for your service. Do you recall being on duty the date of January 28th?
I do.
Do you recall responding to the call at the LSIA?
I do.
Brief description for the court, this incident.
I responded as a backup unit down at LSA from requested from Deputy Indigo and Officer Blackwood. Arrived on scene. Officer Blackwood and Deputy Indigo were talking to a male suspect breaking into vehicles at the time. Through discussion, he decided to run towards a motorcycle that was on scene. He got on the back of the motorcycle, which he was tased off, and then he got into a red SUV on scene and took off in the red SUV. During the pursuit, there was two vehicles, a motorcycle and a blue boxy stance vehicle was interfering with the pursuit. Pursuit ended in Integrity Way tunnels,
Okay.
which had pictured the main suspect got out of the red SUV, attempted to get into a blue Ron Hart that was staged on scene for him, but he was tased and incapacitated with injuries.
Okay. Let me see. Um, can you describe for the court this integrity way tunnel?
It's just the tunnel down by a pillbox, 2 ways in and 2 ways out, east and west.
Okay. Let me see. After Mr. Porter is being downed, um, what was happening?
As we apprehended and tried to render medical aid, a motorcycle was interfering by going in and out of the tunnel. Then shots were fired. On the eastern side, I had no eyes on the vehicle at the time, just from what was being told over radio.
Did you hear the shots?
Yes.
And what were you doing at the time of these shots?
Attempting to secure the suspect.
Just for the record, what are the typical duties of on-scene officers following a pursuit? And the apprehension of a suspect?
Get them to stop, put them in cuffs, search them, and get them medical aid if needed.
And at this incident, were you being able to do these things?
Not at the time. We were being interfered with a motorcycle and a suspect that was shooting at officers.
Okay. Let me see. Who did search the Mr. Tom Porter following this incident?
Yes.
Was that you?
I believe so.
What did you find on this person, if you can recall?
I cannot recall what was specifically on his person.
In your experience on this scene, is there any way that Mr. Tom Porter did be firing any of these shots at the officers?
Not at the time, no.
Was Mr. Porter downed before or after the shooting starting?
I've been before.
Do you know who's searching Mr. Jackson Porter?
I believe that would be Officer Blackwood.
Let me see. The state would enter into evidence Exhibit 5A through E. If you could reference Exhibit 5D, line 10 in the evidence.
I apologize. What were we trying to locate? I'm not good with
5D. Please, for the court, anybody unable to be seeing this evidence, let me know.
I can't see it.
All good here.
You cannot see it?
No.
neither can I.
One second.
Yeah, I can see it now.
This is the search of Mr. Jackson Porter. Are there any firearms on his person?
No.
And then also Exhibit 5C, line 10. This is the GSR test for Mr. Jackson Porter. Note for the court, this GSR test is negative. In your experience, is there any way Mr. Jackson Porter did be firing any shots on the scene?
No.
Mm. Did you hear the initial shooting at the time of the incident?
Yes, I heard shots. Initially, yes. I did not see where they were coming from.
What did you do in response to these shots?
Getting cover and securely make sure the suspect that was already detained safe from the shots as well.
Okay. And was there ever any more shooting on this scene?
Yes.
How much time did be passing between the initial shooting and the next shooting?
I would say a few minutes apart.
And did you be getting shot during this incident?
At one point, yes. I took a couple rounds in the back.
The state would enter into evidence. Exhibit 16A on line 22, the Mr. James Dunn DNA being on file, and would like the court to reference Exhibit 10B on line 10, the DNA for Mr. James Dunn being recovered from the scene. Mr. Dunn, everybody able to see those evidence?
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Dunn, how did your DNA come to be on file?
It was on file from a previous active investigation that was an officer involved shooting down at a Shadowcade.
And did you be providing this sample voluntarily?
Yes.
And for the court, please reference State Exhibit. Let me see. At the time of this next shooting, could you see where those shots coming from?
They were coming on the west side of the Integrity Way tunnel.
Okay. And could you see any persons or vehicles at that location?
The blue Oxy sedan vehicle that was interfering with the pursuit was the vehicle that was shooting at officers.
Now, if you could reference State Exhibit 13A and B, line 10. Please let me know if you cannot see them.
Yeah, I cannot see them.
Thirteen A. One moment. Thirteen A and B. Is this vehicle matching the description of the vehicle interfering with the pursuit?
Yes.
And is this vehicle matching the description of the on-scene vehicle that the suspect firing at officers from?
Yes.
Again, this state will not exhibit 13C, this vehicle being registered to Mr. Simon de Gaffa. Is testified by Lady Indigo, this vehicle found with the tire shut out and abandoned in running. Let me see. Do you recall any other officers being involved in this incident?
don't recall anyone else involved with this besides the officers that are.
And for the record, who are those officers?
Deputy Indigo, Officer Blackwood, and Deputy Barlow, and myself.
Okay. Let me see. Oh. Just a few more questions. In your experience, um, did the shooting of this scene be hindering your ability to be detaining the suspect, Mr. Tom Porter?
Yes.
Did the shooting incident be hindering your ability to be detaining the suspect, Mr. Jackson Porter?
Yes, it would.
Were you hindered in being able to provide medical treatment to Mr. Tom or Jackson Porter?
Yes, at the time.
And were you hindered in your ability to be documenting any vehicles or evidence?
Yes.
No more questions at this time.
Defense?
No questions.
Okay, can you be released from his subpoena?
Also okay with that.
All right, you're free to leave. You're
Thank
free
you,
to
Your
leave
Honor.
the courtroom as you so please. Thank you for your time. Your next witness.
The state will enter into evidence the deposition of Lady Aaron Barlow, line 29 of the docket.
Okay.
Just a few things from this deposition. If it may please the court, I'll be brief.
Mm-hmm.
4 minutes and 6 seconds to 5 minutes and 3 seconds. Miss Barlow is recalling being on duty and attaching to the pursuit from a rummaging call at the airport. She's asserting she catching up to the pursuit at the Integrity Way Tunnel where the officer involved shooting did be occurring. 5:07 to 5:47. When describing the shooting incident, Miss Barlow asserting she entered the tunnel from the west end and positioned the vehicle to block the vehicles that was going back and forth in the tunnel. She was trying to be blocking the interfering vehicles from getting close to the officers as best she could. 6:24 to 6:45. When asked about her duties on the scene, Miss Barlow expressed she was handling the threat at hand and protecting the officers and the individual as shots were continuing to be being fired. 7:07 to 7:41. When asked to describe the tunnel, Miss Barlow asserting that it was about 1.5 blocks long, fairly dark, and had 2 lanes with a sidewalk. 7:45 to 8:04. When asked if she did become under the gunfire in this incident, Miss Barlow affirmed but could not recall how many instances of shooting she did endure. She affirmed seeking medical treatment due to the GSW in her arm. 8:04 to 8:48. When asked about the shooting incident, she is again expressing shots came from the eastbound area, and then an interference vehicle came by coming from east to west, driving past him and shooting. It then swung out towards the west and out of the view. She came under direct fire as multiple shots striking her vehicle, and she diving out of the vehicle to get behind it for cover. 8:52 to 9:23. When asked to further describe this tunnel, Miss Barlow asserting that there was limited spaces to seeking cover. She identified the officer vehicles and noted the walls were completely flat aside from a small alcove across from her truck. It was safer to use her truck as cover because it was bigger. 9:23 to 9:34. When asked if she did fire upon the suspect, Miss Barlow affirmed but could not confirm if she did hit the shooter. 13:36 to 13:52. When asked about the other on-scene responsibilities, Miss Barlow asserting that she was merely handling the scene control and protection of the officers. She was only attaching to assist the officers. Almost done. Um, Let me see. 14:30 to 14:50. When asked about the evidence on scene to be collected and documented, Ms. Barlow affirmed that the scene contained multiple shell casings and blood evidence. 2 officers remained on the scene to process where she helped take the individuals to the hospital. 14:50 to 15:22. When asked about evidence collection or documentation during the incident, Ms. Barlow negated, asserting no, they were being fired at and could not stop to collect evidence at that time. She affirmed that as they were under fire, they could not do much besides make sure that everyone was safe, and they returned fire as needed to the direction of the shots. That is all.
Any other evidence or witnesses, or does the state rest?
The state would enter into evidence Exhibit 9A, the dispatch alerts of the shots fired and shooting incident at Integrity Way Tunnel. Also, 8A through C, 910, the vehicle interfering motorcycle of Mr. Jackson Porter.
Oh, hi.
Oh my god, so aggressive over there.
Very good testimony.
The state would also, for the pleasure of the court, enter into evidence Exhibit 17, A through C, the unidentified DNA strand, believed to belong to the suspect in custody, Mr. Tom Porter. This DNA strand can be directly linked to Incident Report 11981, where Mr. Tom Porter was apprehended, and forensic evidence DNA on the scene is being consistent with that scene and this one. That is all.
Okay. The defense, can you call your first witness or your first piece of evidence?
Yes, Your Honor. We would like to call up Yengi Ko.
All right, make sure you're speaking loud enough for everyone to hear you, and please raise your right hand. All right. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
I do not hear you if you said something.
Yes.
I guess you swear to tell the truth?
Yes.
All right, you've been sworn in.
Your witness.
Hello. I'll endeavor to make this least painful as I can.
Sure.
So, do you recognize the individual in orange over there?
Yes.
Right over there. Okay. Who is that?
That is Simon Gaffa.
Wonderful. Were you with him on January 28th, 2024?
Yes, I was.
Okay. At what time did you start hanging out with him that day?
Around 5 a.m.
Okay. Good to know. Were you with him around 11:40 a.m. EST?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Where were you at that time?
I was at his house at 1001J Rub Street.
Okay. Did you ever part ways with him around that time for let's say more than 5 minutes?
No.
That's all I got. Thank you.
The state. Does the state have any questions for this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Can they be released of their subpoena?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. You're free to leave the court as you so please. Thank you for your time. Next witness.
The only piece of evidence I would like to submit is the original police report on the docket indicating that the time this happened was 11:40 a.m. EST.
Okay, noted. Do you guys need a couple minutes for closing then?
Yes, just a few.
Okay, I'll give you until 15.
Thank you.
Whenever you're ready, state.
Yes. Your Honor, people being present today, thank you for your attention and patience during this trial. The officer testimony and evidence presented today is overwhelmingly proven the defendant, Mr. Simon de Gaffa, guilt. On January 28th, Mr. de Gaffa did be committing the heinous and serious crimes of the 4 counts of aggravated attempted murder first degree and obstructing the justice. His actions on this date declare indication of the premeditation, planned ambush, and rampage against the law enforcement officers. Furthermore, his actions did be directly hindering the officers on scene attempts to be securing the suspects and hindering the ability to be securing and documenting the scene, including the vehicles. On this evening, the officers Indigo, Blackwood, and Dawn responding to the simple call for the breaking into vehicles at LSIA. The suspect on the scene, Mr. Tom Porter, is fleeing as the passenger in a red SUV. The officers initiating the lawful pursuit of this vehicle were 2 additional vehicles, a blue boxy sports car and a motorcycle, deliberately interfering. The pursuit is ending within the Integrity Wet Tunnel when suspect Tom Porter was tasered and when attempting to enter a staged vehicle, a blue Reinhardt registered to Mr. Jackson Porter. Mr. Tom Porter was downed on the scene. Shortly after Mr. Tom Porter was being downed, Mr. De Gaffa did be initiating his assault. Officer testimony and forensic evidence is directly placing him on the scene as the shooter. Mr. De Gaffa's DNA is being surrounded by these shell casings that are returning to a firearm, a MK2 pistol registered to Mr. Simon De Gaffa that was subsequently recovered from the person of Mr. De Gaffa on February 3rd, 2024 during an unrelated incident. Mr. De Gaffa's DNA is being recovered from the exact location where officers are indicating they are returning fire upon the shooting suspect, said Exhibits 10D, 11A, 18D, and 19B. Additional casings and DNA is also recovered across the scene. Today, Miss Yengiko is asserting that Mr. De Gaffa could not be being on the scene as he was being with her at the time of the incident. Again, the officers clearly indicating the same blue boxy sports car consistent with the vehicle that is registered to Mr. De Gaffa, Exhibit 13A through C. The officers clearly indicating the exact location of the shooter, Exhibits 18 and 19. The DNA in casings, Exhibits 11A through D, collected from this location directly linking to the Mr. De Gaffa to the scene of this crime. Officers Indigo and Blackwood both affirming to be hitting the suspect, Mr. De Gaffa, with the returning gunfire at the location where his DNA and casings was recovered. Days later, Mr. De Gaffa is being found in possession of the same firearm that is directly linked to this shooting with the forensic evidence. Again, the shell casings directly linking this firearm to the shooting is being surrounded by the DNA of Simon De Gaffa. The state will assert today that the defense never be denying the Simon De Gaffa DNA being on the scene and did not ever present any argument or testimony to be explaining the DNA presence on the scene. The state will also assert that the witness, Yankee Ko, today is either being very confused by the time of hanging out or did be in fact committing the perjury today. Mr. De Gaffa beginning the assault from the east end of the Integrity Way tunnel and then fleeing the scene. After the passing time, he is returning to the scene, going through the tunnel, this time exiting the vehicle and resuming the assault from the closer range. He is having the better opportunity for the aiming unimpeded by the vehicle. He is again forcing the officers to be taking defensive cover with whatever they could be finding within the confines of the dark and narrow tunnel, and the officers are returning fire to be protecting their lives from this relentless barrage of bullets from Mr. De Gaffa. I believe the term is to be like shooting the fish in the barrel. Mr. De Gaffa's initial assault on the policia perhaps was being the crime of passion, the attempted murder in the second degree. But the fact that he did be leaving the scene, nobody pursuing him, he is free to be leaving, and did be returning to the scene a second time is the clear demonstration of the premeditated intent, I cannot English today, and the planned and targeted attack against the officers. all of the officers within this confined and narrow location. The moment he is returning to the scene, he has demonstrated the planning. The moment he was returning to the scene from the other end of the tunnel in the blue boxy sports vehicle identified by officers, he is demonstrating the planning, and the moment he is opening fire, that is the premeditation and intent. He is targeting, again, every officer on the scene of this incident. He is exiting this blue boxy sports vehicle, the same vehicle described during the pursuit interfering, the same vehicle fleeing the scene after the shooting, the same vehicle traveled back and forth of the tunnel shooting, and the same vehicle he did be exiting. Exiting to continue the fire. His DNA and casings, right where the officer's saying he is shooting from. And while the officer's evasive actions invested preventing more severe injuries, Mr. De Gaffa is not being absolved of any culpability under the law. He is returning to the scene, driving back and forth, firing upon the officers, and exiting the vehicle to continue his shooting. He did unfortunately be striking two unseen officers, Mr. James Dawn, DNA evidence on the scene, and Miss Aaron Barlow as asserted in the deposition. Their crisp uniforms, representation of the law, not moist with the blood, simply for doing their jobs. Mr. De Gaffa was clearly taking the necessary steps to be attempting the murder of every officer being on that scene within the confines of the narrow and dark Integrity Way tunnel. It is being only the miracle and defensive actions of the officers that more did not be sustaining the serious injuries. Mr. De Gaffa's actions on 128-24 also clearly obstructing the officers from securing the scene, detaining the suspects on the scene, providing medical treatment. They were being forced to take cover from the attack and their attention forcibly taken away from the suspects trying to be apprehended. Officer testimony and irrefutable DNA and forensic evidence is clearly proving and affirming the guilt of the accused, Mr. De Gaffa. Justice is demanding today the returning of the guilty verdict on all counts. He must be held accountable. That is all.
Defense.
Attorney Baker. We'll go into a short recess. Whenever you're ready.
All right. Apologies for the short second I needed there. Oh, holding.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So, Your Honor, let's start with a few things we know for sure. The individual in the blue sports car was not identified that day. The state is basing their identification off for Mr. De Gaffa on the casings and the blood. Guns can be held by many hands. They don't just work for one person. Blood can come from many situations and will stay at a location for some time before it eventually washes away or deteriorates. Cars can be driven by someone who they are not registered to. These are all facts. In Miss Yangi's testimony, she was with Mr. De Gaffa at the time of this incident in a home away from the shooting's location. What's left to us is conjecture. Here's what I will point out. This is just one possible truth that is also supported by the evidence today. Mr. Porter is rummaging through cars in an open, easily surveilled location at an airport. He has not one, not two, not three, but 4 cars at the ready to rescue him. 4. That's the kind of preparation a crew would be lucky to have for a bank. Think about it. It's very odd to have that for a petty theft, like just breaking into cars. But it makes a lot of sense if that really wasn't really their end goal. Mr. Porter could have been scooped up and home free at any moment with any of those cars waiting. But when police approached him, he chooses to stay and speak with them. He allows himself to become detained. When detained, Mr. Porter makes a huge production out of giving a fake identity of Brian DeGaffa. Lieutenant Indigo specifically notes he goes so far as to spell out the name Degaffa. He also makes a production out of getting a call from his so-called brother. Brian DeGaffa's brother is Simon DeGaffa. He's pretending to be Brian and getting a call from Simon, directly implicating them both. That is not something you do to your friends, especially not ones you expect to rescue you in a few minutes. That's something you do to someone you want to harm. Only after he has done this does one of his rescue cars come to scoop him up. Kind of like they were waiting for him to drop that information. They then pull the police response to Integrity Way, circling the area, playing musical chairs with the police until they can get them to a position where Mr. Porter has staged an escape car in that particular tunnel. Now let's do a thought experiment. What if Simon was injured there earlier that day and Tom Porter knew? This is a street right next to a hospital, the place where people go when they get injured. I bet there's plenty of blood if you search around the hospital. He could potentially, Mr. Porter could potentially steal Mr. DeGaffa's car, where Mr. DeGaffa leaves his legally owned guns in the glove box. They steal his car, use his gun, and drag the police to a place where he's injured, where they get out, fire a few times to leave casings, then leave after being completely ineffective in helping anyone else. It was like that driver was an actor just trying to hit a mark in a play. He then left, put the gun back in the glove box, returned the car, well, put it on the side of the road, and Simon was none the wiser. Mr. Porter never intended to get arrested. He had that car ready to drag the police there and then leave. All he wanted to do was implicate Mr. DeGaffa. All the player had their parts to play, they just did so sloppily. It was enough for the police, though. No officer has testified for sure that they landed a shot on this suspect. They did shoot in the direction of him. While we're talking about that, though, I would point out that there are 4 charges of aggravated attempted second-degree murder today, and nothing has supported 4 officers being injured. None of them claimed injury in their reports, except 2 do now. They don't even know exactly where the shots were coming from or specifically where they were being aimed. There's not enough to apply this to an unknown suspect, not even enough to apply crime crisis. The state only noted 2 people injured. 4 counts as an overreach all on its own. Let me close with this. Correlation is not causation. We all know the line we need to meet here today for Mr. DeGaffa to be found guilty. I see plenty of doubt here. We have testimony of Mr. DeGaffa's alibi. Tom Porter's actions seem to indicate he was intentionally implicating Simon DeGaffa and seemed willing to cause him harm. Why would these individuals have such an overblown preparation for petty thievery? Why would Mr. Porter allow himself to be detained if that was all prepared? Why would he make such a big deal of dropping the name DeGaffa? Why did they stage that car in that specific location, so close to a hospital? It's a tunnel with only one way in and out. Seems like a disadvantageous place. You could easily get pinned there. What happened to the driver of the red SUV? Why would Mr. DeGaffa carry a gun if he knew it was used in a prior shooting? If you have a hot gun, you could just chuck that baby into the ocean and be done with it. He had a gun license at the time. He could just go to ammunition and get a replacement. But he kept it because he had no idea it was used. What I laid out just now is only one possible story that fits the evidence. With the incomplete information we have here, there are many stories that could fit. We'll never have all the facts. We can only guess. The question is, do we have doubt? Thank you.
All right, give me one quick moment. All right. So I've already made my decision on this matter, but before we do, I do have a couple of questions for one of the witnesses. Can Yanko please reapproach and get sworn back in?
All right, make sure you're speaking up for everyone to hear you and raise your
Yes.
hand. All right, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, have been sworn in?
Hello. So we just do have a couple of questions for you. I thought
Sure.
we'd come down and be a little less intimidating, I guess, from talking from above. We don't really want to do that. So before we begin, I do want to advise you that you are being investigated for potential perjury. It was brought up by the state, and it was a thought of mine. So do you understand, before we go forward, do you understand what the charge of perjury is?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. With that being said, I want to reiterate, you did say that the defendant was with you from, you said 5 a.m. to what time?
Honestly, the whole day I didn't state that there was a time that it stopped.
Okay. And you did state that at the time of this incident, approximately 11 o'clock, that the defendant was with you.
Yes.
And you stated that you guys were inside of the apartment?
His house? Yes.
Okay. For a couple clarifying remarks, did you guys ever leave that house?
Yes.
Okay. Did you leave around that 11 o'clock time?
No.
Okay.
I do. Hello, I'm Judge Tarts.
Hello.
When you left, did anybody else see you?
Dr. Z at the hospital?
Did any hospital staff see you?
I don't remember.
Okay. Around what time did Dr. Z see you guys?
I want to
Sorry, what was that?
I want to say it was around 10.
Around 10. Okay. Where is this house located again?
1001 J Rub Street.
Do you use the tunnel in question on integrity to get there?
Yes.
Okay. Doc?
All right, you can step down. I'm going to go into a deliberation session for about 5 minutes, and I'll come up to a decision on the case as well as the perjury charge.
Am I free to sit down?
Yes. First and foremost, I'm going to address the perjury charge. At this point in time, I will not be finding Yanko I don't find that they perjured themselves. Or rather, I feel like they may have on certain things that were stated, but I don't think it's enough. But I will use this as a stern warning that it seems the past several court cases, witnesses have continued to border that line of perjury, and the courts have begun to notice, and we will begin to crack down on that. Moving on to the actual charges today. If the defendant will rise. The defendant is currently facing 4 counts of aggravated attempted murder in the first degree and obstruction of justice. Today, we've heard numerous testimony surrounding law enforcement and their experience today, blood, DNA, forensic evidence, bullet casings, all found on scene. Each officer, as well as the deposition and the evidence that has been submitted to this court, line up pretty close with each other, and this court hasn't found any reason to disbelieve, with the exception of the witness provided by the defense, which would provide the defense with an alibi. However, listening to the very short few questions provided by the defense, the alibi is not a strong one. It is a simple statement that any one person could make up right then and there on the spot. There are no other pictures or other evidence to prove this alibi. And no explanation as to how DNA got on scene if the defendant was inside of his house at the time of the shooting. There was no testimony to him being in that area beforehand or afterhand. There was no real explanation for the bullet casings. So with that being said, the court does not believe the alibi to be true, and as such, the defendant is found guilty on all counts. The defendant will be sentenced to 370 months in Bolingbroke State Penitentiary and pay a fine in the amount of $17,000. Court's adjourned.
All right, Porters are next.
That's wild.